I just got done filming my Pretty Patties video, so if you see my hands, they're disgusting, and I'm so sorry. Last week I started reading a story called My Friend Went Missing but Left a Google Doc. There's still 4 more parts to the story, and I don't really want to split this up into 3 videos, so this is just going to be a really long video. I'd rather read all 4 of the parts now and then move on to a different story. So we're going to read parts 3, 4, 5, and 6 right now. So I'm just going to get started. There's not going to be an intro to this video. That was it. It was almost 4 a.m. by the time we reached my old house in our forest sanctuary. We were all exhausted, Rowan especially. He drove us everywhere, and whenever we were searching for Talia, his was the voice that would stretch the furthest. It made me feel a little bit bittersweet, watching him as excited as he was to find Talia. They were that one pair of friends everyone has who should definitely be together, but for some reason they aren't. I'm sorry about the constant sidetracking. It feels like it's been so long since our lives were normal, even though it's only been a day. We head into the forest, and I did my best to remember the way to the cave, working off my instinctual memory alone. But honestly, I didn't recognize this forest at all. The forest I remember was bright and welcoming, leaves raining delicately from above, rays of gold pushing through the thickest of green. It was alive, with the songs of birds and rustles of leaves swaying with the breeze. This forest was dead. The trees weren't the tall, gentle giants of my childhood, but fierce, snaking monsters of my nightmares, stretching their slender arms to the night sky, staining the moonlit earth with dense shadow. The silence was deafening, buzzing in our ears. Definitely not the place you want to be at 4 o'clock in the morning. Somehow, I led us to the cave. I quietly called out for Talia, but I didn't receive nor expect a response. We inspected the cave, searching every nook and cranny, until finally, Rowan found another note. The note had a code on it. I have no idea what the code is referring to. I've racked my brain for any time a child might have used this code. After retrieving the note, we came back home. It was about 8 in the morning when we arrived. My parents obviously were horrified. To be fair to myself, I didn't call frequently to let them know I was okay, but you still can't expect them to be over the moon about not knowing the whereabouts of their daughter at a time like this. Haley and Ahmed had gone home to their parents. I don't want to tell them any of it, just on the off chance they tell the police. I mean, technically it's all on Reddit, so I'm not really hiding anything from them, but they don't use Reddit. Daryl went to bed, ready to sleep till next year. Rowan and I, however, spent the next couple of hours thinking about that code. The session ended with both of us cursing about how fucking smart Talia is and how fucking annoying it is that she made some fucking uncrackable fucking code. I had decided that my brain was too tired to understand what the code was trying to convey and surrendered to my bedroom. I was just about to drift into my lovely little nap when a sharp knock on the door jolted me awake. It was the police. They gathered us all around, their expressions laden with sobriety. Anxiety began to stir in my stomach, quickening to the beat of my heart. It was the same detective who talked to us yesterday who spoke first. The rest of the police just avoided eye contact, staring straight into the ground. Talia had been sighted near Haley's house last night. My heart sank as soon as he said it. I already knew what had happened, but I didn't want to say it. I wanted him to shut up. If he said the words, they would solidify the truth. I wanted them to remain the comforting jelly of mystery that they presently were. I threw my cup of water on him. Needless to say, people were shocked. The police were shocked, my friends were shocked, my parents were shocked, the detective was shocked. I immediately realized what I had done and apologized profusely. I rushed to get him a towel and he comforted me, telling me it was all right. He was a nice guy. Haley was killed in her sleep. I took comfort in the fact that it wasn't a gruesome death. She fell asleep and never woke up. I still feel like I'm going to wake up one of these days. That this is all a weird, really long and detailed dream. I'll wake up and go to my friends the next day and tell them about my really weird, long, detailed dream. Kayla and Kara would comfort me, telling me that it sounds scary. Haley would be texting one of her 7 boyfriends, not paying attention. Jake would be livid that I killed him off. Sandoz would be spaced out. Talia would laugh and say, "I was the killer all along," and proceed to pretend to kill everyone. I wonder if a normal day will ever come again. It was another afternoon of sitting around and crying for everyone. Amen came an hour after the police left, already weeping. It was so strange to think that less than 24 hours ago, she would have had Haley to hold on to cry with. And now? Amen sat with Daryl and sobbed into his neck. Silent streams streaked down Daryl's cheeks, falling into Amen's hair. Rowan and I sat beside each other yet again, staring at the floor. It was around this time when I received a message on Facebook. It was from Talia. "Come meet me at Seddon Park. ASAP." Rowan and I are now on our way to Seddon Park, about to see Talia for what feels like the first time in a decade. Just want to start this off by saying I'm stupid. I'm a dumb, stupid idiot, stupid, dumb. And now that that's clarified, let's update you guys. We arrived at Seddon Park around 10 p.m. The park was usually occupied for some nighttime sports, illuminated by 2 massive floodlights on either side. Tonight, however, the park was empty and dark, appropriate for a no-sleep story. We walked around the outside of the park looking for Talia. I wanted to yell out her name, but I had a really bad feeling setting in my stomach, which held me back. We walked for a while, when Rowan suddenly stopped and looked straight ahead. His mouth curved into a broad smile. I searched frantically for what he was looking at, but there was nothing. "What are you looking at?" I said. "I've just had an idea." He whipped out his phone and started mashing the screen. "Quick, give me the note," he said. I handed him the note, looking around to check if anyone was nearby. I paused mid-sentence as my sweeping glance picked up a rosy-looking girl in the distance. There she was, sitting on a park bench on the opposite side of the oval, looking around innocently like the gentle, confused boob that she was. I couldn't suppress the stupid grin on my face. Without a second thought, I ran towards her, every step closer sending waves of joy through my entire body. My first friend, my best friend, the one person I needed now more than ever. Rowan tackled me into the dirt and wrapped a hand around my mouth. I yelled in outrage, the sound muffled by his burly fingers. "Shut the fuck up," he whispered aggressively. I looked at him inquiringly. He was terrified. He let me go and took out his phone again. "What's going on?" "The code isn't a code," he whispered. He turned to show me his phone, which displayed a Google Doc with a chunk of writing on it. It's part of a URL. So many times I've used Google Docs, yet still somehow the dunce of the school is the one who recognized the URL. Each Google Doc has a specific URL attached to it, which looks like a string of codes. Talia and I have used this numerous times. A couple of stories we co-authored, a couple of school projects. Sometimes when her parents would steal her phone, we would talk on Google Docs, just to make it seem like she was doing work. Rowan showed me the document. I woke up on the side of the road. I'm not sure where I am. My clothes are stained with blood. From reading the other document, I think it's safe to assume it's Kayla's blood. I don't know what happened, but I guarantee the police are after me. Kayla's house has security cameras outside and they definitely caught me leaving. I left a note for Cher to find. She is the one person I know will come to my side if I need her. I'm heading to the forest by her childhood home, a place where I'm hoping the cops will never think to look. I killed them. My parents, Kayla, Jake, Sandoz, Kara, everybody. I just left the cave leaving a note with a link to this document. I can't put Cher's life at risk. I found a doctor who wrote an article about a disease that sounds similar to mine. 18-year-old girl with memory impairment going on murderous rampages while she's unconscious. The article had no comments and was on the 3rd page of Google, but it was the only one that matched. I messaged the doctor and we had a long conversation. He taught me how to increase my conscious time. It's been several hours since my last attack, so I guess he knows what he's talking about. He's arranged a meeting at East Hill Station at 9 p.m. on Saturday. I'm on my way there now, but Cher, if by some chance you meet me at Midway, stay away from me. Do not approach me. If I'm conscious, I will stay away from you no matter what. If I'm unconscious, I will probably approach you. In either case, stay away from me. Do it to save my life, more than yours, because if you die, I will too. I looked at Rowan, my face mirroring his terror. We were a hair away from marching to our deaths. I read the document again. Talia had murdered everyone. No, not Talia. She wasn't conscious when she did it. It was something else entirely. We have to get out of here. Oh my god! You guys came! My heart leaped to my throat as I turned and saw Talia running towards us. She looked normal. She sounded normal, yet straight away I knew this wasn't Talia. I tried my best to remain composed. She doesn't know that we know she's not Talia. The key to any situation is information, and when you have more information, you have the upper hand. I tried to predict my next couple of moves. She would obviously try to lead us somewhere more private before killing us. We could pretend to follow her and then double back and run away. The key was to remain composed, believe the lie. Talia, I'm so glad to see— Fucking run! Rowan's magnificent advice echoed through the empty park. I didn't have time to think. Talia's gaze melted from the loving to pure evil. Her jaw unhinged as an ungodly noise screeched out of her mouth. I turned around and sprinted for my life. I could hear feet pounding against the pavement, at a much faster rate than ours. I glanced behind me. This was definitely not Talia. Her eyes were glowing red and her mouth was open a foot wider than humanly possible. She was on all fours, her hands and legs working furiously to catch her prey. Fear pumped through my blood and pushed air out of my lungs. I hated in movies when people scream as they're being chased, but in the moment it made perfect sense. My scream was heavy and I needed to get it out. I needed to be lighter, so I could get the fuck away from whatever the shit was. She was less than 50 meters away and gaining fast when we reached the car. I scrambled to get the door open, but my fingers were loose and I couldn't muster the strength to open it. My back was turned to her, so I had no idea how close she was. After my desperate struggle, I wrenched the door open and flung myself in. Rowan had already started the car and was driving away. I glanced out my window and Talia's contorted face slammed against the window. I thought for sure the window would break, but it held firm. She screamed monstrously, terror seizing my body as she did. She pounded against the door with bleeding hands, every swing leaving a splatter of blood on the glass. We picked up speed and her grip on the car loosened. She let out one last unearthly shriek and let go. For the next hour, we just drove. Our destination as far away as possible. An ache stung in my chest, from my heart thrashing about in its ribcage. My lungs expanded beyond their limit, yet still were not getting enough air. My entire body was burning, fear flooding out of my pores like steam. I looked at Rowan. He was in no better state. I had no idea how he was driving. I couldn't even formulate cohesive thoughts. Talia's screaming still echoed in my head. For a long while, Rowan and I sat in silence, panting like dogs. The same question kept tumbling around in my head the entire ride back home. What the fuck is going on? My parents were unbelievably livid. How could I blame them? Children dying left and right and their only child gone missing without explanation. I was berated for quite a while. Had I told them we were just chased by my demon best friend, they would have killed me. So now, I sit here and type out this story under heavy surveillance and strict curfew. My mom and dad took the car keys and placed it under their pillows to make sure I don't disappear into the night. It freaks me out that this thing is out there somewhere, possibly dressed like a normal teenage girl, possibly digging into the flesh of another victim. The more I think about it, the harder it all seems. How am I meant to protect Talia from herself? How do I help out in this situation? She's heading to this Dr. Sands person tomorrow night. I might sneak out and watch what goes down. I've had a long day. I'm gonna go have a well-deserved night of sleep. It's 5 a.m., but I have to update you guys on this. I really don't have to, but for some reason I feel like writing about these things. It makes my life seem more like a story than real life. I woke up at 1 to the feeling of someone sitting down on my bed. Naturally, I freaked the fuck out, scrambling like a lost deer. But it was my dad. He came in to tell me how scared he was the past couple of days because of my adventures. Apparently, the night we went to the old house, my parents drove around everywhere, trying to find us. And when Rowan and I had left without saying anything, they feared the worst and called the detective. He arrived about an hour after we did, so he was slightly perplexed when I answered the door. My dad was the closest person to me, next to Talia. He told me that he knew I was trying to find Talia and that I didn't have to hide anything from him. I told him everything. I told him about the notes, about the forest, about Talia. The furrows in his brow deepened and his stress was almost tangible, but in the end, he just said, "What's happened has happened," and let it go. I told him that I was going to see the doctor that Talia mentioned, and he said I could go, if he could come with me. This is where my father and mother differ. I love my mother, and she loves me, but a mother's concern for her child far outweighs her trust in them. My father trusts me. He knows I can handle myself, and even then, he is always there to help. He kissed me goodnight and left me to rest. A few minutes later, he came back and sat on my bed. I told him to let me sleep when, "Sure, silly, it's me." I sat up slowly and looked at her. If not for her eyes, she looked completely normal. Same rosy red lips, same flowing brown hair, but the way she was staring at me, she was trying to dig into my skull and gouge out my brain with her gaze alone. "Hi, Talia," I replied, shitting my pants. "Why did you run away from me? Because you're a bloody murderous lunatic?" "Well, it was kind of dark, and did you think I was gonna kill you?" I froze, my brain melting down my neck. How do I respond to that? Yes? "I'm not going to kill you, Cher," she whispered. "You're my best friend. You've always been my best friend." I paused again, unable to think of something to say. "Did you kill the others? You mean Kayla and Jake and stuff?" "Yep. Yeah, I did. I didn't want them here," she continued nonchalantly. "They were filler characters in the way of the people that I really wanted in my story. You killed them because you didn't want them to be alive?" She looked at me as though I just said something super obvious. "Well, yeah. What would you have done? So are you going to kill everyone in the world except for me?" "No, silly. How boring would that be?" She laughed. "Rowan, too. I like him." This was becoming all manners of fucked up. "Remember when we played Kingdoms?" she exclaimed, getting eerily excited. "Guess what?" She paused as though I was about to make a guess. "It was never a game, Cher." She edged closer to me, letting me in on her mind-boggling secret. It was real. A look of frantic, maniacal excitement spread across her face as she said it. "I'm the queen, and you're my princess, and Rowan is our king." She came closer to me, her glare burrowing deeper into my skull. "You don't even know it yet, but you and Rowan are both in caves right now. Everyone's trying to keep me away from you, but I won't let them." She crept closer, foam frothing out of the corners of her mouth, her eyes widening, her jaw beginning to unhinge. "I'll slay every last person between us, till we're finally together again, as it should be." She kissed my forehead, saiting it with her blood-red lips. "Get some rest now, Cher. Get some rest." As if I could fucking sleep after that. I pretended to be asleep for a couple minutes until I was sure that she was far, far away. Then I got up and bolted to Rowan's room. He was wide awake in his bed, his eyes trembling with terror, streams flowing down his face. His shirt was ripped open and his chest was bleeding. His covers were torn to ribbons, scattered across the room, and scarcely hiding his quivering, naked body. Talia had raped him. Hi Reddit, this is Daryl. I'm sure you were wondering why I'm writing this one, but I'll get to that. First, Nora had written quite a lot for you guys before shit hit the fan, so I'm gonna put that in first. I spent the night with Rowan, comforting him, and trying my best to calm him down. I woke up Daryl so I could update him, and also because I suck at comforting people. I have no idea what Rowan must be feeling right now, but I know that he's strong enough to pull through. I checked the document again and saw that Talia was writing updates. I came into consciousness very near Cher's house. I'm not sure if I made contact with you, Cher, but if... Oh my god, Cher? Talia? Yes, it's me. Holy shit. You met with me last night, twice. I told you not to approach me. The first time around, we got a message from your Facebook account asking us to meet you at Seddon. We only went because we hadn't figured out your dumb note was a URL and not a code. I should probably have written Google Doc or something on the back. I'm so sorry. Did I hurt you? No, you didn't hurt me. You just talked to me. I don't remember anything, Cher. I found out what's wrong with me, but I can't talk. Talking to you is making me very emotional, and the way I'm staying out of frenzy is by controlling my emotions. I understand. But I don't want to leave you in the dark. Here are Dr. Sand's details. Message him, and he'll explain everything to you. He's a bit rough, but he's a good guy. She left the document, and I sat there, staring at the little dark pixels on the screen. I wanted her to stay for longer. There were so many things I wanted to say, so much I wanted to talk about. She gave me the doctor's number, so I messaged him. He replied almost instantly. Hey Dr. Sands, I'm Nora, Talia's friend. I wonder if you had some time to talk. Your friend is fucked. Excuse me? Your friend is fucked. What do you mean? I mean your friend is fucked. Could you please explain without being rude? Your friend is fucked and it's best you move on and make some new ones. You're a doctor. Yeah, I have a paper that says so. Can you please just tell me what's happening to my friend? Depends. On what? Your argument. Argument? Yes. Can you explain? No, you. What? Explain. Explain what? Explain why I should tell you. It's been almost 60 hours since I've had proper sleep. Everyone in my life is under constant threat of death. The police are going to kill my closest friend who just so happens to be possessed by a demonic spirit who killed almost all of my other close friends. And I'm on my fucking period, so if you don't tell me what is happening, I will personally track you down, pull at your spine, and hang you with it. Fair enough. Your friend has a Sands disease. I found it and named it. It's a very rare disease. Only 2 known cases of it in history. My sister and your girlfriend, Talia. The disease basically messes with the parts of your brain that control memories, emotions, morals, to concoct one of the deadliest brain diseases ever encountered in history. Memory stops writing and your emotions get a huge kick. Talia's desires, her dreams, her love, her hate are all magnified when she's in this non-memory writing state I call frenzy. She's not technically unconscious, just not storing any of her memories. She does lose a couple of her other memories in the process though. Props to her for thinking of the Google Doc thing, pretty smart for a high schooler. Heightened emotions happen to everyone, hormones and all, but when our desires and hatreds are too high, we still have this moral wall that stops us from killing people and shit. Psychopaths don't have that, which is why they just kind of do it, and this brain disease seems to disable that firewall as well. Sadly, there's no cure for it, but I could conduct research on the disease using your friend Talia. It would be highly illegal for multiple reasons. Your friend is a fugitive, and the court will not recognize her mental illness as an illness if there's not sufficient documentation of the illness. But she can't be diagnosed if she goes to jail. So basically, she can't avoid jail. Conclusion, your friend is fucked. Shouldn't they appoint a psychologist or something to look at her? The only person they could appoint who would recognize anything diseasey about her is Dr. Sands. And they're not appointing that guy. He's not very appreciated in the scientific community. I'm sure you're as smart as you're playing yourself up to be. Anyone can recognize that she's not mentally okay. Remember, she's not a demon. She's not going crazy. Her brain function is completely normal, heightened in fact. The other Talia is not a separate identity. It's her own higher functioning one. She lays traps, she can maintain a normal appearance. A court psychologist ain't gonna see anything. Her only chance is me. She's got to come to me and let me perform illegal experiments on her until I find out which of the illegal experiments are relevant to her cure. How long would it take? I don't know, a month, a day, an hour? I'm gonna take her to my lab today. You're welcome to join us if you'd like. Thank you. East Hills, 9 p.m., right? Wow, you guys are really besties. See you then. That's all she left. I'm not as great of a writer as Nora, so you'll have to bear with me. At around 8 p.m., Rowan, Nora, her father, and I were getting ready to leave the house to meet with Dr. Sands, but before I had even gotten my shoes on, there was a knock on the door. It was Detective Allen, and he didn't look happy. He came in with 6 burly-looking police officers. We all stopped what we were doing and acted as though we weren't about to go on some vigilante mission, except for Nora, of course. You guys going somewhere? His tone was not the kind inviting one that he had been using before. Just taking the kids out for some ice cream, Detective, replied Nora's dad. He seemed cool as a cucumber. I wish I could say the same for myself. I was sweating rivers. Mind if we join? The more the merrier. The detective and Nora's dad stared off for a while, both of them brimming with passive hostility. Then the detective returned his focus to Nora. Nora, when did you last interact with Talia? He asked. A couple nights ago, when we were sorting out what we were going to do on our night out, she replied, not taking her eyes off the shoelaces she was tying. I don't know how they were keeping so cool. Rowan and I were dying on the inside. The detective came closer to Nora. I could see her dad starting to shift in his seat. The police officers began to shuffle too. Things were getting tense. I have to bring you in for questioning. No thank you. It's not a proposal. Yes it is. Submitting to questioning is elective. Why would you rile him up? The detective bent over and looked Nora in the eye. Nora returned a steely glance. The room was thick with anxiety. I'm asking nicely, Nora. Please don't force my hand. Thank you for asking, Detective, but I told you I'd rather not. So either find an excuse to arrest me or leave us in peace. He stood up, his frustration at its tipping point. You're such an idiot, Nora. Okay, Nora Withers, I'm placing you under arrest for suspicion of harboring a murderer. The room exploded. Everyone, including me, was advanced forward and yelling at the top of our lungs. The police officers advanced quickly. One held back Nora's mother, who was crying louder than anyone else in the room. I think Rowan actually charged at the detective because there was a police officer pushing him against the wall and handcuffing him as well. Nora's dad tried to make his way to Nora, tears welling up in his eyes. He was pleading with the detective, but the detective's cold, unforgiving glare swept right past him. Nora's eyes were wide with shock. She clearly had not predicted this. Everything happened so quickly. They took Nora and Rowan, and all we could do was argue, plead, and cry. The sirens had long faded into the distance, and we were all still standing around outside, processing what had just happened. The thought had only just occurred to me that someone had told the detectives about our expeditions, otherwise he wouldn't have known about us contacting Talia. It wasn't Rowan or Nora, nor was it her dad or I. It wasn't her mother She was disapproving of our ventures, but the fact that she was currently lying on the grass sobbing into the dirt meant she would never have done this, which left one person. Amin was sitting on the stairs that led up to the front door, weeping into her palms. Why did you tell them? I wanted to be nicer, but just watching her disgusted me. She could barely form words, she was sobbing too hard. The rational, calm part of me really wanted to ask her later, but the irrational, fuming two of my friends just got arrested because of this bitch pressed me on. Why did you tell them? I whispered it this time. I found that whispering scares people a lot more than shouting. She responded this time, hiccuping frequently. I was scared. I didn't want anyone to get hurt again. Do you understand that Talia is going to die? Or go to prison for the rest of her life? I know I didn't want to do it, but Haley and Kayla and everyone She went off into a mess of unintelligible slobber. But for what it was worth, I didn't blame her one bit. After the things we'd been through, who could? I'm sure you guys are picturing a cold, dark room, illuminated by a single lamp, a giant silver one-way mirror, two badass-looking cops, the slender one in a collared shirt with his tie done loose, the burly one with a trench coat draped over his shoulder, both with vicious, stern looks on their face, both sporting massive cigars between their teeth. But the questioning wasn't like that at all. They took me to a place that looked more like a doctor's office than an interrogation room. The guy asking me questions was quite nice. He let me know all of my rights and all of the reasons why I was arrested before proceeding to ask any questions. Turns out, someone had offered to be a witness in court, testifying to overhearing a conversation between Rowan and I that suggested we were accomplices to Talia. I could only think of one person in our house who would do that, and before you guys comment your curses, I completely understand. Amin, just like all of us, is in a difficult place right now. If I was to liken her to my earlier comparison of my mother and father, she would be a mother. She only cares for our personal safety and wants the best for us, but in that endeavor, prevents us from taking any risks, lacks faith. People like Amin don't understand that if you're not ready to risk your life for something, your life isn't worth anything. Be as it may, she is a kind, gentle person, and it took great courage for her to do something like this, and I'm proud of her for taking that step. The detective let us go after a night in custody, making it clear he was only trying to assert his position. We didn't go to an actual prison, but we did learn the lesson. I agree with Daryl's statement in his chapter. I was quite stupid. I guess I just knew that as soon as he walked in, I would not see Talia that night. And the frustration of all of it overwhelmed me into stupidity. We all make mistakes. The questioning itself was difficult. I didn't know what Rowan was going to say, but I knew that the easiest way out of this would be to comply and tell the detective something. I prayed to God that Rowan either kept his mouth shut or said the same things. I told the questioner that I believed Talia was only acting on this because of a mental issue, not out of her own desire. I told him that she had contacted me on Facebook, asking me to meet her at Seddon Park, but when we arrived, she wasn't there. I even told them that she visited me in the night to make sure I was safe. The detective assigned us with a casual protector who would stay with us at our house, making sure we weren't harmed, which fundamentally meant that we were under house arrest. The police officer Rowan took us home and asked a few questions about Talia. I was surprised because none of the questions were, where did you see her last, or when did she last contact you? They were all genuine curiosities about the girl Talia. What was her favorite song? Did she have a boyfriend? Did she get good grades? I was pretty confused why he cared so much, but there was a long silence and then he said this. I believe you guys. Talia seems like a nice, normal girl, under the influence of something that isn't in her control. But last night she ripped the head off of one of my friends. I stared at Rowan and Rowan stared back at me. Our expressions mirrored. The thought hadn't even crossed our minds that the detective wasn't telling us about Talia's other victims. But it made perfect sense. I'll slay every last person in between us. I'm so sorry, whispered Rowan. People die in this business all the time. We try to sweep it under the rug before the media comes crawling all over us. Occasionally things slip up. But the number of people your friend has killed, I'm surprised it isn't on the front page of every news facet in the world. The number of people your friend has killed? Why was this only occurring to me now? What I'm trying to say is, I don't think your friend has much time, whether she's innocent or not. She may have stood a chance when Detective Allen was in charge of the case, but I hear it's being moved higher up. And those people are not as kind as Greg is. My mind began to whirl. Talia was a dead girl walking. She may have survived this long, but she's gathered too much attention now. She's dead. Detective Allen doesn't like it any more than you do. That's why he was so frustrated when you kept things away from him. He would have never hurt her. I fucked up. I massively fucked up. I should have told him everything from the start. But he's also got people he can order around too. People he can mentor. People he can pass down his kindness to. Which is why I've been assigned to you. We're gonna find Talia and get her under the radar before it's too late. Open up that Google Doc and tell her to tell us where she is. My heart was fluttering like a bird in a cage. A bird on the purest form of crack available on the black market. I took out my phone and checked the Google Doc. Cher, I don't have any time to explain. I need you here quickly. Come to the field by my house. Come alone, since you are the only one that my frenzy doesn't seem to hurt. I know this sounds like a trap, but it's about my cure. I had gotten one of these before, and I had the overwhelming feeling that it was a trap. I messaged the doctor and he confirmed that they were both at the field and I was required urgently. But for what? It made me feel uneasy. I was almost certain it was a trap, but I was also certain that Talia would be there. Trap or not, and that was our target after all. We're coming, Talia. We arrived at the field, and it was unbelievably dark outside. Why did it always have to be dark? Nora and I shared a brief look that lasted a lifetime. I was really glad to have her here with me, even though there was a police officer with a handgun and years of training sitting right in front of me. I just felt safer with her. She was clever, she was ferociously brave, but most of all, she would never desert a friend in need. The field was a large square of uneven grass, with a large twisting tree at the edge of it. It was surrounded on all sides by tall metal fencing, armed with barbed wire. I had a very strong feeling that Talia was at the tree, but no one could see a thing to verify my thoughts. Officer Rowan told us to wait in the car. "So you can shoot Talia and say you tried your best?" growled Nora. But Rowan wasn't having it. Our only option was to trust him. We waited in the car for a long time, casting our eyes to the darkness and keeping our ears open for any sort of noise. A dark figure began to take shape as it sprinted to the car. I instantly realized that it would have been a better idea to wait in the driver's seat with the car ready to drive away. But as it came closer, we could see that it was Rowan, holding a piece of paper in his hands, his face lined with anxiety. He threw himself into the car and started driving straight away. "What happened?" "She's not there. She left a note. She's at your house, Nora. I think she's going to kill again." Nora and I looked at each other. I could feel the fear flooding her veins. I grabbed her hand and held it firm. She was shaking uncontrollably. Her mother, her father, everybody she had left in the world was at that house. We saw a plume of smoke in the distance. Everybody in the car knew where it was coming from, but none of us wanted to believe it. We pulled into her street at 90 miles per hour. The flames illuminated the road. There were people everywhere. People on phones, people rushing towards the building, people running away. We pulled up to our house and dove out of the car. Talia's nightmarish screams filled the air. Crowds of people watched, horrified from a distance. She was holding a severed head in her hands. I couldn't make out who it was. It could have been Daryl, it could have been Amin, it could have been anyone. My heart sank. This was it. This is the end. There was absolutely no way that she was getting out of this. We rushed towards her, barging through everyone. We rushed by Daryl, holding a crying Amin. We rushed by Nora's mother, lying on the floor, tears streaking down her face. We approached Talia, the girl I loved, her mouth thick with blood and her eyes trembling with excitement. Her shrieks shivered through my body. The house behind her bathed her with a fiery glow. She wasn't Talia anymore. No one will be able to kill her. Nothing will be able to stop her. I looked around for someone who could help. People were running away. People were watching in complete shock. People were screaming into phones. Daryl and Amin were waiting, their voices thick with fear and misery. Nora was staring in shock, quivering with the fear as she realized whose head Talia was holding. Rowan was backing away, the toy in his hand slipping between his fingers. But I was still frozen with fear. I begged my body to move, but my body refused. I was just like the rest of them, useless, capable of nothing but gaping in awe. It was Nora who moved first. She approached Talia, with the gait of a girl walking off the edge of the world. Talia's rage elapsed as she watched her empty-eyed sister and bond approach. A loving smile spread across Talia's face that almost made her seem human. It was only then that I noticed the gun that Nora had picked up when Rowan had dropped it. When she raised it from her side, the whole world stopped turning. The flames stopped burning. We all stopped weeping. We just watched. She placed the barrel of the gun on her own chest. There was an endless moment where we all reached for her, screaming. Me, Daryl, Amin, even Talia. We all reached out to save our friend, but none faster than the bullet. I wish I could tell you that she died as she lived, brave, fearless, and fierce, but that's an insult to her memory. Nora was strong, but she was human. She feared death, and she made it clear in her dying moments. She was writhing on the ground, her violent screams gargling through the blood pooling in her lungs, over and over again the same words. I don't want to die. Talia clutched her oldest friend, her life bubbling out of the gaping hole in her chest. She wore a true look of frenzy as the worst cure of her disease began its play. Nora screamed, till finally her life gave away and her haunting shrieks dwindled into nothing. Talia held the corpse of the only person in the world that she truly cared about. She felt Nora's soul pass through her as she drifted off to the world Talia could never visit. Her emotions were on acid, and Nora just gave her an overdose. Of all the screaming I've heard in the past week, none of them could compete with the way that Talia screamed when Nora died. Watching your closest friend die is painful, but when your emotions are as ramped up as Talia's, I can't even comprehend what that must have been like. All I could do was stand there in horror, watching Talia vomit out her vocal cords, watching her eyes tumble in their sockets, refusing to believe what was before them, watching her drag her nails through her skin, peeling it to the bone. A tall, slender man rushed into the scene and smashed Talia over the head with a bat. Her screaming stopped. Her eyes rolled into the back of her head. She slumped over, her arms still cradling Nora. Tears slid down Talia's nose and onto Nora's. They trickled down Nora's cold face, mingling with the lukewarm pool of blood beneath her. The slender man, Dr. Sands, took Talia over his shoulder and bolted at the sound of sirens. Officer Rowan felt a lot more confident when he returned to the scene, almost an hour after the incident with his posse of police. In a matter of minutes after Talia and Sands left, the place was crawling with people. Ambulance, police, media, and what looked like the SWAT team. Today we commemorated one of the bravest girls this world has ever had the good fortune to have, Nora Withers. Nora's mother spoke to us at our gathering today. It wasn't a eulogy because it wasn't really a funeral, but it was a touching speech nonetheless. She spoke of her daughter's bravery and her honor, of her strength in tough times and her warmth on cold nights. But I could hear the hatred under that whimpering voice. She was so angry. What everyone mistook as quivering in misery, I recognized as quivering in rage. How dare she? How dare she value her bravery and honor over the woman who loved and took care of her since air first filled her lungs? I messaged the doctor today. Talia had come out of her frenzy, but upon hearing what she had done, tried several times to kill herself. Sands has to strap her down and has not guaranteed her safety. He said she won't eat, drink, or anything. All she does is cry. Daryl, Amon, and I visited Nora's house after the service. We spent a long time sitting in Nora's room. It took 5 minutes, but it was on the photo of Nora and Talia sitting on her bedside table that triggered our collective emotional breakdown. For a long time, we just sat there and cried, and after that, we cried more. We finally calmed down and began talking to each other. When Amon noticed Nora's laptop, it was still on, but there was a Word document open on it. I have a plan to stop Talia. It's a last resort measure, but if it needs to be done, I'll do it. Sands told me that Talia's disease causes her emotions to be 10 times stronger, which means they're also 10 times more susceptible. Anything traumatic will send her spiraling into a curling ball of defeat. But she has made her intentions clear. She doesn't care about anyone at all apart from Rowan and I. When it comes to it, if it comes to it, I have to die. My death, I'm hoping, will be the one thing to trigger her enough to stop her from wreaking havoc. But if I die, there are a few things I want to clarify, which is why I'm writing this. I hope that one of my friends would be kind enough to post this on the Reddit series I've been writing. Talia Reid is a good person. My last moments were the undeniable proof of that. She loves stronger than anyone else I've ever met, and it's not her fault that she's sick. My death is not her fault, nor any of the others she has caused. The entire point of this series was to clarify to everyone who will hear this on the news or from their friends that the truth is that Talia's good. I've known her since she was a child, and I've watched her grow up into the beautiful person that she is today. She's one of the only truly good people left on this planet. She is very kind. She is kind when you are hurt. She is loving when you need love. She is fierce when you need protection, and she will do anything for the people that she loves. A lifetime of watching her cut down my enemies from inside my little cave has inspired me to be more like her, watching her defeat her monsters with not a drop of fear in her blood. I wish I could have been like her. My queen, I know that you're still struggling right now, and I know that you don't trust yourself, and if you know that I'm dead, you're probably trying your best to die as well. But listen here, you little cunt. I own you. You owe me your life. I've gone through thick and thin to save you from everyone. You owe me everything, which means you aren't allowed to kill yourself. Your life is mine. So go to Dr. Sands and let him cure you. And make your best effort to make yourself happy, because that is what I want you to do with the life I saved. And when you're all patched up, do me a tiny, insignificant favor. Go back to that cave and leave this message on the wall. It's stupid, but it'll make me feel better. I want our friendship to be immortalized. Queen Tanara and Princess Cher forever. Can I just tell you that my throat fucking hurts? I am so shocked by that story. I don't know if it comes out of my voice or not. Because I don't read these stories before I make a video on them. I feel like that kind of ruins the tone of the story. I don't know. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this really long video is okay. I just thought it would make more sense than splitting it up into 3 videos, but yeah. So thank you again, guys, for sending me stories. And this video has gone on for long enough. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! I think I'm being watched by my neighbors. Dude, I'm just reading a story, okay? Dude, leave.